Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Nursing News You Can Use at 5. I'm Tina Baxter and I'm your host. And thank you for joining us. And those of you that are on our Facebook pages and those of you that are on a YouTube channel, the Nurse Shark Academy, welcome. Today is Wednesday, March the 20th. And our affirmation for today: I feel reborn. I am free of the past and I joyously welcome the new. I feel reborn. I am free of the past and I joyously welcome the new. Welcome to our show where we're covering everything in nursing, news, and business, and have a commentary about it. So let's have a conversation today. All right, let's get started because we've got a lot of news to cover today. This first story is coming from McKnight's Long-Term Care News, and it says whistleblower owes landmark 1.1 million to nursing home for groundless false claims case. Let's get into this one. This just happened to come out today. It says a judge has awarded a landmark 1.1 million in attorney fees to a nursing home targeted in a false claims case found frivolous for its reliance on publicly available and false information. Senior U.S. District Court Judge Glenn Davidson of the Northern District of Mississippi on Thursday ordered attorney turned whistleblower Cameron Gill to pay for the work of attorneys defending the Golden Living Center, South Haven, in a case that dates back to 2019. He characterized Gill's allegations against the nursing home as, quote, groundless, frivolous, and with no chance of success, triggering a provision of the False Claims Act that allows wrong providers to recoup loss for legal and other fees. Davidson in February had rejected Gill's request for another hearing on the matter, and his March 14th ruling finalized amounts to be paid to several attorneys and paralegals who worked in the case on behalf of Golden Living and several related parties. While the judge reduced some billing because he could not glean enough detail about the lawyer's various activities, he rejected other attempts by Gill to lower the payouts. In one example, he reduced fees by 20% versus the 75% requested. Davidson repeatedly cited the whistleblower's own actions and their influence on his determination. It says the relator, or Gill, set the tone for this litigation following the allegations against the defendants, along with seeking over $30 million in damages. It is therefore reasonable that the defendants and their counsel would find the need to investigate and litigate this case fully and extensively. So, according to the article, it says while it was unclear Tuesday whether the 1.6 million in fees is 1.06 million in fees is a record involving dismissed nursing home false claims suit, attorneys contacted by McKnight's Long-Term Care News described the amount as, quote, unique and a landmark. So the two attorneys representing Golden Living did not respond to requests for more information. The case could serve as a warning to others who would seek to bring an unsupported suit against healthcare providers seeking access to tripled rewards under federal law. Skilled nursing providers have long said that they spend much needed funds defending or settling such cases, even when the government doesn't find enough merit to intervene. So this is why I wanted to get into this beyond this, because the fact that they brought a frivolous lawsuit, according to this apparently, and lost big time. But I wanted to really kind of look into this, and so I'm reacting with this with you. So it says in this particular case, Gill had previously deposed one of Golden Living's licensed nurse practitioners in another case. That's how he discovered, or so he thought, that South Haven had employed that NP when her multi-state license was temporarily revoked. I think I kind of remember this case. I think I kind of remember hearing about this case previously. Okay. So in 2019, Cameron Gill brought a quote action against, alleging that the NP had been unlicensed for nearly a year and violated federal regulations while serving as the director of nursing services. Yes, remember we covered this case previously. So this is the fallout from that case. He claimed the facility had received, quote, millions in reimbursement payments to which it was not entitled. By late 2022, two federal courts had found the case unmeritorious, noting a complete failure proof on each of the essential elements of the plaintiff's claims. Gio also built part of his purported case using a publicly accessible database. False claims cases cannot be based on public information, as the goal of the program is to elicit information that is otherwise unavailable to the government. So, yes, I kind of remember this case. He was trying to say that the nurse practitioner didn't have a license because her compact license had expired, but apparently there was some overlap or something, if I remember correctly, and it was completely unfounded when he had this. Yeah, so this goes back to that whole, remember we were talking about that war on nursing? Well, here we go. So that I remember that case, and we talked about this a few episodes ago. All right, so this is to say it's a cautionary tale. If you're going to bring a case, make sure you bring a good one and that you get the right experts in that. This is where a nurse expert probably could have helped save them over $1 million if they hadn't used one. All right, let's get on. So this is from News 7 out of Boston. It says 7 investigates healthcare workers without pay and worried about patients after business files for bankruptcy. This is more of a continuation of our trend of noticing healthcare facilities defaulting on their ability to pay their vendors and their employees. It says the future of healthcare is what staff at Boston Senior Medicine thought they were signing up for, but now they've gone without paychecks and worry patients are getting the care they need. The Canton-based home health business aimed to bring primary care directly to the homes of senior patients. So again, let me stop here. This is a different model. We're not talking about nursing homes. We're not talking about hospitals. This is a home care agency, which is basically providing primary care in the homes. And this is why I bring these stories out, not to vilify the individual homes, but to bring light to this larger issue that we're having in healthcare. It's kind of a mess. So let's get on. So it says we can really help people. We can go right into their home and we can bring primary care to them. This is a game changer, said Randy Varagas, a former Boston Senior Medicine employee. At least that's what Varagas thought when she joined the business in 2020 to head its marketing efforts. The company brought services from x-rays to blood work right to private homes, assisted living facilities, and senior centers. Jennifer Rohnstock also believes she was helping shape the future of healthcare. As a licensed nurse practitioner, she worked directly with the company's patients. She said they were signing up patients left and right. Patients are really falling out of the sky because it was an attractive service to them. She remembers when she joined the team in July of 2023. So this really hasn't even been a year yet. So she's only been there for a little less than a year. So, but Rohnstock and Varagas said the illusion started to shatter for them last fall. She said there was definitely a ball drop between the patient and the office. Former employees told 7 Investigate that they believed the number of doctors employed was dwindling and patients were having their appointments canceled. The family would be calling saying, "Where's the doctor? They didn't show up. We need to reschedule." And then it just started raising a lot of questions. Varagas recalled at one point there were hundreds of voicemails found. These people were like, "Help, help. No one has called me back yet," Varagas said. She said she would get calls from patients and they would try to get help for them, but she couldn't address all of the concerns. For those people who just kept calling the number instead of calling me, I don't know what happened. It got really, really sad, really, really sad, she said. Apparently, some had to resort going to the emergency room. Rohnstock says these people, they're older. It was really hard to kind of watch that happen. I know they weren't getting to be taken care of. So while patients, again, were waiting for medication refills to be seen, etc., employees, it says, were also waiting for their paychecks. Rohnstock says weeks would go by and she's like, "I'm still waiting to get paid," and it never happened. Dan Stockhouse was the director of operations. He started in September 2023, so not long after she started in July, and said he went more than a month without a paycheck. He says, "It's impacted us quite a bit, $11,000. That is a good amount of money, and that could go towards quite a bit right now." Stockhouse, Varagas, and Rohnstock were all let go last fall. Veragus is owed about $50,000 and Lone Star nearly $10,000, according to a complaint filed in the Norfolk Superior Court against Boston Senior Medicine, its owner Patrick Mitchell, and his wife India Mitchell, who serves as the director. The Massachusetts Attorney General's office received 10 complaints related to Boston Senior Medicine between October 2023 and January 2024. The office could not disclose the nature of the complaints or if they're investigating the company. 7 Investigates then tried to reach out to the business. Initial calls went straight to voicemail and the number was disconnected. While the signs are still up for the business in the Canton office, the Boston Senior Medical offices were empty and dark. Mitchell did not return multiple calls and emails for comment. His attorney told 7 Investigates no comment. So we can see that this is kind of bad. So while former staff members are worried about their paychecks, which they have a right to, right? Can I just stop here right here and say this? Healthcare workers are workers. They deserve to be paid for what they do. So yes, they are worried about their paychecks, but they're also concerned about the patients who might be without care. And then my question is, what are the implications if you were the provider caring for that patient and then your office closes, you let go, those types of things? What implications does that leave for you? Are there possibilities of you getting dragged into something because the ball was dropped by this agency? Yeah. So Rohnstock says, my concern is for those patients, if they're not paying their employees, who do they have left working? And then, are the patients being responded to or are their needs not being addressed? So that's a recent article that came out. There's more to it. You can certainly review that. But I found that one quite interesting. And again, it's not just because I don't want people to say, oh, you're always picking on long-term care. Oh, you're always picking on a hospital. No, I cover everything. And this is an independent home care agency that on the promise sounds really great and offer great service according to the article. But unfortunately, they went out of business. And I don't know why they went out of business. I'm not sure what's happening with them. I don't say in the article, didn't say. But I say that, right now there's a big push in healthcare. And things are happening and people are waking up and saying, hey, wait a minute, this isn't right. And I think that's what's happening. And these things are getting reported more and more in the media so that the lay public now knows what's happening. The other thing that I want to say is that I'm very curious, and again, this is pure speculation on my part, but I'm just wondering if were they ever caught up in that, in the change thing with United Healthcare, where they're not getting paid, where they're having problems processing their payments? We don't know. And those are all questions that are out there. Was this part of, we don't know. The attorney's not saying. Are they going to file for bankruptcy? We don't know. And so this is the state of healthcare right now. There's so many factors that go into all these things. And this is why I have the show, is because there's so many things that are happening. So if you have any further information, if you're in the Boston area and you want to comment on this, let me know what you know, because I want to share great information and make sure I'm accurate in what I share, because we're just having conversations and commenting on things. But it makes me, there are such great things that are happening in healthcare, and I don't want everybody to think the show is always negative, but because it's not. But there's so many challenges that we have in healthcare, and this is why I want to share these stories with you. So I'm going to go on to our next story. This is coming out of California. This is from the Sacramento Bee, and it says California orders religious-based healthcare sharing ministry to stop sharing or selling member plans. And I thought about this because, I don't want to just talk about nurses and doctors and things like that, because I think more importantly, it's also to talk about our state of our healthcare overall and insurance and things like that. And so for me, this is more information for those in the lay public that don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe you want to find out. And so we've seen a rise in a lot of these health sharing plans come up. Some of the other big ones that you may have heard of, I'm not going to mention their names because, again, nobody's sponsoring me, so I can say what I want, but I don't want to mention names. But some of the big ones are out there doing great work. And they're a great alternative for people that may need it. But there are also bad actors out there. And I want you to be aware of that. So I'm reporting what they say. So the Sacramento Bee says the Department of Insurance Monday ordered a healthcare company to stop selling membership plans in California, saying it was not licensed to do so. Jericho Share operates a health care sharing ministry, meaning it's made up of a group of people with common religious or other beliefs who decide to split medical expenses among its members, which legitimate, okay? Joining one of those organizations can exempt residents from the state's individual health insurance mandate. Jericho Share, however, is not eligible. So here's part of the problem is that this is from also was reported in Yahoo News. The agency had problems with their coverage, canceling their people were trying to cancel their membership because they weren't able to get their care needs met. So the department sent them a cease and desist order. Jericho Share was not licensed to sell insurance in the state, yet the company marketed services that are similar to traditional insurance coverage regulated by the agency. Company representatives did not respond to emails requesting a comment. Efforts to reach out to them by phone were unsuccessful, and that was part of the problem that people were complaining about. They couldn't get to anyone to answer questions. At the bottom of his website, Jericho Share says it's not an insurance company. So, according to the mission statement, it says, I believe every member has a fundamental and religious right to worship God in their own way. I believe it is my religious and ethical obligation to share in the burden of others when they need assistance according to my current resources and opportunities. So, along with not selling memberships, the department ordered the company to stop advertising and collecting money associated with its plans. Jericho Share has 7 days to ask for a hearing on the matter. An unidentified department spokesperson declined to answer an email questions about their company's response, the allegations, and the number of residents who are members because it's an ongoing legal matter. The agency official would only say that the order was issued to stop the unlicensed transaction of insurance. Jericho Share has drawn the ire of at least one other state regulator. Last year, the North Dakota Attorney General ordered the company to pay restitution to 75 people following an investigation. So apparently they are operating not just in California, but they're operating in other states as well. So residents in the state had accused the business of making false promises about its coverage of medical conditions and expenses. The Attorney General said the company had created a false impression that it was selling health insurance. And so that is the problem, is because these alternative plans are not health insurance. So you don't know if they're going to actually pay for what they say that they're going to pay for. So you have to do your due diligence if you sign up for one of these plans. So this is why I'm bringing this information out. This is more of a consumer protection type thing. And as I know, there are several people that are looking to get insurance or buy insurance in the marketplace, or am I going to go to this profit or this health benefit sharing program? So there's all those questions. So if you do that, make sure that you research the company very well. This is coming from the Centers for Disease Control. This article came out. It says the Center for Disease Control is now addressing healthcare worker burnout. This is from Spectrum News 1. It says staffing struggles, long hours, and concerns over mental health. Healthcare providers have been sounding the alarm in recent years about the struggles they face. The CDC's National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health Impact Wellbeing campaign released a, quote, hospital-tested guide, which outlines a process for hospitals to take at the organizational level and changes that will impact and improve the mental health of their workers across the board. Honestly, if it doesn't say hire more staff and pay them what they're worth, I don't know what it's going to do, to be honest with you. Because it seems like we've been saying the same thing over and over, and nobody's listening. Okay, so Catherine Dawson, a registered nurse who has worked in the capital region for more than 2 decades, stated, the hospitals need to listen to their nurses. I like the challenge and the fact that I would always have a job. But for Dawson and many other nurses across the state and nation, the appealing aspects of the job have been clouded by poor work conditions. Sometimes they have 5 to 7 patients that are very ill. It just injures their soul that they can't provide the care that they're striven to provide. Dawson says that this has deterred some of her colleagues away from the bedside, an issue highlighted during the pandemic, but on the radar of many well before. So I have to say, before the pandemic, many people were feeling the pressure to see more and more patients, take care more and more patients, have more on your schedule, have more on your um, workload. All these things were happening, and not have the additional support staff that you once have to take care of those patients. And now, you have to worry about supply shortages and all these other things that we have to deal with on a daily basis. It can be exhausting. And so people were feeling the burnout before the pandemic, and the pandemic has just exacerbated everything. It was the systemic illness in healthcare that now has moving from chronic to acute, in the fact that we are dying and we're hemorrhaging staff every day. And this is something that we need to address. So, Dr. Leslie Coleman of the Upstate Medical University states most of our physicians were not really doing that well. There was some burnout and dissatisfaction, and this was before the pandemic. So, again, same thing. Coleman is the inaugural Chief Wellness Officer position that was in the process of being created the fall before the outbreak of COVID-19. She says, my original responsibility was to measure and improve the wellness of the medical staff. It was quickly realized that nurses fell into this category. Okay, all right. I don't know. That statement right there, I had to take my glasses off for this one. But that statement right there just struck me in the face, right? And I don't know if they meant it the way I took it. But the fact that they would say it was quickly realized that nurses fell into this category. Nurses weren't part of the medical staff that was experiencing burnout? Like, didn't even occur to you that nurses would be in there? Anyway, yeah. I don't know. It was just, to me, it was like a gut punch when I read that. That was my reaction. Okay, so let's go on. So it says it was quickly realized that nurses fell into this category, and several initiatives to address their well being were rolled out, including free mental health counseling, a social worker dedicated to healthcare professionals, and a team of workers across hospitals trained in critical incident stress management. So she says, we have a process now where trained teams will go and assist that group of co-workers in the process and dealing with their issues. Okay. Well, I appreciate the effort, and I appreciate someone coming if there's something happening, workplace violence, really bad clinical outcome, those type of things. That's a perfect response. But are you going to send a team in that says, oh, you're short staffed, we're going to send in the emergency response team to shore up your staffing? Because actually, that's kind of what we need. Just saying. I just think that these are band-aids. They aren't real strategies. So yeah, you can go read the rest of this from the CDC. But I just think these are band-aids, and they're not really addressing the issue. Poor staffing. All right, let's move on. So this next story is coming from the Washington Post. It says, after years of ransomware attacks, healthcare defenses still fail. Mm-hmm. So federal officials and industry executives have known for years that the U.S. healthcare system was one of the critical industries most vulnerable to hacking, but failed to make the improvements that might have stopped attacks like the one that has crippled pharmacists and other medical providers for 3 weeks. The danger was obvious in 2021 when ransomware gangs struck hospitals already overwhelmed by the COVID-19 pandemic, forcing some to divert incoming emergency patients to other facilities and potentially contributing to deadly treatment delays. But with the private sector lobbyists opposing new security requirements, Congress and the regulatory wheels have ground slowly, mainly promoting best practices that hospitals can and do choose to ignore. And yeah. So, can relatively unknown electronic clearinghouses like United Health groups change healthcare, which was the object of an attack launched last month by a hacker affiliated with the ransomware gang Alphv, ALPHV, that severed a key link between medical providers and their patients' insurance companies, and the worst healthcare hack ever reported. Change Healthcare said Monday that it had provided advances of $2 billion to pharmacies, hospitals, and other providers who were unable to get insurance reimbursements during the failure of its network. Critics say that Change Healthcare fiasco, which has hurt patient care at almost three-fourths of U.S. hospitals, shows that defensive efforts are horribly inadequate. They say a complete response would include strict security requirements for the most critical pieces of the sprawling system, followed by less stringent but sufficient rules for big hospital systems. The smallest providers, which may not have any security staff, should get help as called for in the administration's proposed budget. So, Nitin Natarajan, I'm probably butchering your name, but I do apologize. Deputy Director of the Department of Homeland Security Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, stated, "We need to make sure we know where these vulnerable points are. We're looking at what levers exist." Some members of Congress say that this should have happened already. Yeah. So Senator Ron Wyden, a Democrat from Oregon, says the government needs to prevent this kind of devastating hack from happening over and over again. "I want to work with the Biden administration to ensure that there are mandatory, specific cybersecurity rules in place as soon as possible and to ensure accountability for CEOs." Deputy National Advisor Ann Neuberger said that the White House is examining what laws it can impose to such standards on a reluctant industry, while telling executives that they are expected to comply with the voluntary guidelines immediately. Well, again, if it's voluntary, are they really going to be spending that money? Yeah. So we will see what happens. She said some requirements will come soon for providers that accept Medicaid and Medicare. The American Hospital Association says it supports voluntary cybersecurity goals aimed at defending against the most common attacks like phishing emails. But the organization criticized mandatory measures like those proposed by the Biden administration, saying it could penalize hospitals that fail to meet certain standards, even when most of the risk comes from third-party technologies. That's a good point and a good question. Because let's say that you have your security system in place, you put one in place, you purchase the software to do the security or whatever that you need to do, and that security fails. Is it the hospital's fault or is it the vendor that is providing that security? That's a good question, and maybe that's something that needs to be worked out. So they say that they wrote a letter to the House Finance Committee. The AHA cannot support proposals for mandatory cybersecurity requirements being levied on hospitals as if they were at fault for the success of hackers in perpetrating a crime. Last year, more healthcare industry targets reported ransomware attacks to the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center than any other of the 16 sectors of critical infrastructure, according to an annual summary released this month. Experts said industry resistance to mandatory security was only part of the problem. Hospitals fall prey because they are, quote, easy money, said Greg Garcia, executive director of a healthcare industry cybersecurity group and a former assistant secretary of Homeland Security. If the choice is pay the ransom and save a life, or don't pay a ransom and risk losing a life or going out of business, it's a small system. It's kind of a no-brainer for the hacker. Asked why it was not prepared better, Natarajan said the complexity of the sector was part of the reason. So there's more to this story. Please go ahead and look it up in the Washington Post to read more. I don't have time to go into all of this today, but those do bring in some of those questions that I have. Who's at fault, right? If there is a third-party provider that's providing the security, who's at fault for the breach, and would that fall in the hospital? And ultimately, of course, it would say it would be the hospital more than likely, but that's a big question. All right. So, just really quick, because I want to do this before we take our quick break. There's a lot to get through today, but there's another story. This is coming from the BBC. It says COVID inquiry, men's masks given to female nurses. So I wanted to give you a bigger perspective and come to a story that was about the world, right? So I wanted to share that with you. And so thanks for the love. All right. So it says female nurses in Scotland were regularly being given face masks designed for men during the COVID pandemic, a public inquiry has heard. The Royal College of Nursing told the Scottish COVID inquiry that female nurses were were wearing their masks or warning their masks would not always fit as properly as a result. Sorry. RNC Scotland Director Colin Pullman said the inadequacy of PPE given to its members were, quote, staggering at times. Better PPE would have cut the number of NHS staff getting COVID, the RNC added. Scotland's COVID public inquiry is investigating what happened during the country's response to the pandemic to work out what lessons can be learned for future public health emergencies. So Mr. Pullman was asked about the supply and distribution of personal protective equipment to nurses. He said RNC members struggle to get higher grade masks, which form a seal around the nose and mouth to fit properly. He said nursing is a predominantly female profession, and many of the masks were not designed in smaller sizes, so we had huge issues at times. The inadequacy of the PPE was staggering in some ways. There were members of staff being asked to reuse PPE that was not designated to be reused, for example, because there wasn't adequate supplies. The type of PPE was not always the fit for the situation it was being asked to be used in. Mr. Pullman also added members didn't feel prepared for the pandemic, but they also didn't feel the right guidance was in place, and PPE was a significant issue because there was not the provision we believed there should have been. The RCN Scotland director also claimed that the Scottish government, quote, dismissed concerns about the airborne transmission of COVID during the pandemic. The nursing union's argument in 2020, which was later backed by the World Health Organization, was that COVID was airborne, but Mr. Pullman told the inquiry Scottish ministers did not respond to this point and that they were dismissed in favor of droplet transmission. So again, that's part of the issue. In the first few months of the COVID pandemic, there were reports of shortages of some coronavirus protection equipment in the NHS. It came at a time when global demand for items such as gloves and masks was at unprecedented levels. So again, please check out this story from the BBC. There's more to it. I wanted to go ahead and bring that up because I wanted to show that it wasn't just stuff that was happening here in the US, but it happens across the world. And this is important news. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. Step out into the light and come feel the sun. Join the Nurse Academy today at thenurseacademy.biz and come feel the sun. All right, let's go ahead and get into our next story. It says Dayton Nursing Home files for bankruptcy, but is not expected to close. This is from Dayton Daily News. Dayton Senior Care LLC, which does business under the name of Friendship Village, is part of a Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing in Tennessee, along with 6 other entities owned by the same company. But the Ombudsman Office does not anticipate the facility will close. Friendship Village, located on Dellinger Road in Dayton, filed for bankruptcy in the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Middle District of Tennessee in Nashville. Among the top creditors listed is the Montgomery County Treasurer's Office with $444,411.31 owed in property taxes, according to court documents. Friendship Village did not comment. Chip Wilkins, a local ombudsman, said that would be awful to lose Friendship Village. The Ombudsman Office recently visited Friendship Village to conduct staff and resident interviews at the request of the U.S. Bankruptcy Court to ensure resident care does not decline during the bankruptcy proceedings. While the Ombudsman Office does not anticipate Friendship Village to close, expecting it will be sold, the facility will be required to give residents a 90-day notice before closing. Wilkins goes on to say it's a community. It has independent living and assisted living in a nursing home, and it would affect so many. It's been in Dayton so long. It serves a big part of the community, and it would just be devastating to lose them. Other debtors include 6 other affiliated nursing homes, all owned by Trousdale Foundation of Cleveland, Tennessee. Friendship Village's assets are listed as being between $10 million and $50 million, according to court filings. Another Dayton region creditor listed in the bankruptcy filings is Veracity Resourcing and Services, which provided contracted nursing services and is owed $147,094.97. Gem City Home Care Plus, a home health agency service provider in Dayton, has a disputed claim of $74,683. So again, I bring those up to say, there's issues that are happening across the board in healthcare, and hopefully they'll be able to resolve this, and maybe they can get that company sold, or more than likely they'll sell it back to themselves, or to form another entity to sell it to. Who knows? Okay, so in some more upbeat news, this is an article coming out of New York, and it says first nursing homes in New York approved for blood transfusions. So this is from Spectrum News 1, and it says first group of nursing homes in New York approved for blood transfusions. For the first time in New York, the Department of Health has approved 3 nursing homes for in-facility blood transfusions. Those 3 nursing homes are in Western New York, Garden Gate Healthcare Facility, and others. And it goes on to say that one of the goal is to help avoid hospitalizations for transfusions. So Chief Nursing Officer Andrea Zora of the McGuire Group says, we know how disruptive it is for patients to have to go out to the hospital from this setting. If you spend a day or 2 in the hospital, you can really become deconditioned, which is true. You don't participate in your normal routine. You're not as active. You are laying in a bed. If we can provide services here on site in their normal setting and not disrupt their day-to-day. Zora says patients in nursing homes where they can do in-care blood transfusions don't have further declines in their health. Having the ability to provide the service in-house also helps free up beds in the hospital. So I think that's kind of a win-win. I think that would be good. And as long as the nurses are properly trained to monitor and you have enough staff to do it, great. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, here's our next story. It says hospital faces backlash. So it says from public backlash, some healthcare companies are abandoning hospital deals. Connecticut residents staged a protest outside Day Kimball Hospital in Putnam County in July of 2022 amid the hospital's discussion to be acquired by Covenant Healthcare, worried that a takeover by a Catholic healthcare system would lead to cuts in reproductive care and other services. Proposed hospital deals in some states have fizzled as lawmakers turn up the regulatory heat and intense pushback from organized labor and grassroots organizations. So it says, worried about hospital closing and higher costs for patients, state lawmakers are increasingly tangling with hospitals over potential health care mergers, and in some cases derailing deals they think don't serve the public interest. And that has certainly been us following what happened with Steward Healthcare and some other things people were talking about. We've kind of talked about this very issue in various forms on the previous weeks. So it says, financially strapped hospitals often look to merge with or be acquired by other systems. After a pandemic-era slowdown, healthcare mergers and acquisitions have risen steadily over the past 2 years, but some proposed hospital deals in Connecticut, Louisiana, Minnesota, and elsewhere have fizzled amid heavy pushback from lawmakers, organized labor, and grassroots organizations. At least 10 healthcare, quote, mega deals were called off or unwound just last year, due in part to increased oversight, reported Becker's Hospital Review, an industry publication. And so we certainly, you can certainly look at Becker's report for that. So this is about Covenant Healthcare. So in March of 2023, Massachusetts-based Covenant Health called off its plan to purchase a smaller, struggling healthcare system in the rural northeast corner of Connecticut. More than a quarter of announced healthcare deals in the United States last year involved a financially distressed partner, according to consultancy Kaufman Hall. Community groups rallied against the deal, concerned that Covenant's takeover would lead to cuts in reproductive care and other services. Covenant is a Catholic system and follows a set of rules called Ethical and Religious Directives for Catholic Healthcare Services, which forbids the system from providing some types of healthcare. Those include emergency contraception, fertility services, gender-affirming care, abortion, and some end-of-life care. So Connecticut State Representative Jillian Gilchrist, a Democrat, told State Line, my concerns were really rooted in the fact that it was a Catholic-affiliated healthcare institution that follows Catholic directives. That region of the state already had limited healthcare options, and one of Planned Parenthood's clinics in that area had recently closed. There was a concern that women in the northeast corner of Connecticut wouldn't have access to reproductive health care. Some area residents worried that they'd lose their hospital without Covenant's takeover, but others formed a coalition that called on the state to deny the proposed acquisition. So Covenant President CEO Steve Grubbs said in a statement announcing the deal's cancellation that, quote, the affiliation was no longer financially viable. Day Kimball Healthcare CEO R. Kyle Kramer said the system's leadership was disappointed by Covenant's decision not to acquire it in a statement he released shortly after it was announced. We are immediately pursuing the best path forward for Day Campbell and look forward to working with local and state officials as well as exploring discussions with other potential future partners to preserve essential hospital services in the northeastern Connecticut community. So again, there's more pushback in Louisiana, pushback from state lawmakers and community groups pause a proposed $2.5 billion sale of the nonprofit Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana to for-profit insurance giant Elevance Health. Blue Cross has defended the proposed sale by saying it would help the nonprofit insurer slow rising healthcare costs and better compete with its national rivals. Louisiana State Senator sent a report to the state insurance commissioner outlining dozens of concerns over the fairness of the deal, alleged attempts by Blue Cross to influence policyholder votes, and Elevance's, quote, troubled history of fines, penalties, lawsuits, and premium increases. The Louisiana Hospital Association, other medical groups, and state treasurer also opposed the deal. So in Minnesota, the Attorney General's office has received nearly a dozen proposed healthcare transactions since a new law passed a year ago. Before that law was passed, we did not get an advance notice of a merger or transaction unless the parties told us, said Elizabeth Odette, manager of the Antitrust Division of the Minnesota AG's office. Sometimes that meant there was not a whole lot we could do meaningfully before the parties completed the transaction. But the stronger law has allowed not only our office, but the public and the involved parties to take a little more time to consider the implications of a proposed large merger. So we're seeing this happening across the board, which is why I wanted to bring that up. This is not an isolated incident. It's happening across the board in other states as well. Okay, so I have two stories here involving a nurse. And again, when I bring these stories, I do want to say that everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. So I'm not here to vilify anybody, but I often bring these stories up because there's some things in here that we can learn as providers, nurses who are in business, which is why I always bring this up. So Dayton Daily News says nurse accused of drug theft at 4 nursing homes in 3 counties, raising oversight questions. And I guess this really resonated with me today because I just went and had fingerprints done for a compact license. And so, these are things that are concerning. So what has happened is that this particular nurse has been fired from other facilities in the area and then immediately picked up and found a job in other areas. So it says licensed practical nurse Deja Marie Thomas, 35, is now facing criminal charges in Clark and Montgomery counties, as well as an investigation with the Ohio Board of Nursing. She's accused of forging multiple co-worker signatures in order to gain access to narcotics like oxycodone and Norco. Amid a widespread shortage of nurses, Thomas was quickly hired at area nursing homes after being reportedly terminated from other facilities at one point through a nurse staffing agency. Records say she worked at 3 different places over 5 months last year. The first incident cited in nursing board records is alleged to have occurred a year before the others and was reported to the police, but no official action was taken by the nursing board until January of 2024. So the news organization reached out to Thomas and her attorney. Neither responded. So here are the allegations. So Thomas was indicted in July in Montgomery County on forgery and drug theft charges. The court entered a not guilty plea on her behalf, and her attorney on March 13th filed a motion asking for her to receive intervention in lieu of conviction, quote, for the reason that the defendant's use of drugs and or alcohol was a factor leading to the criminal offense with which the defendant is charged. In Clark County, Thomas was indicted in August on forgery and drug theft charges and arrested on a warrant in September. She pleaded not guilty and is awaiting trial. The Ohio Board of Nursing on January 25th sent Thomas a notice that the board is considering taking actions against her LPN license. That notice references the allegations against her in Miami and Montgomery counties, but not Clark County. So the nursing board records allege that Thomas did the following. On and about March 23rd to 24th of 2022, while working as a nurse at Troy Rehabilitation and Healthcare Center in Troy, she forged a coworker signature on patient's record to obtain Norco. In or about February and March of 2023, while working as an agency nurse for Gale Healthcare at Oak Creek Terrace Nursing and Rehab, she forged coworker signatures on 2 patient records in order to obtain oxycodone. In April, May, and early June of 2023, she forged signatures to steal drugs at Dayspring in Clark County. On or about June 6th and 17th, while working as a nurse at the Sanctuary at Williamington Place in Dayton, she forged coworker signatures on the patient records in order to obtain Norco. So they said that in the report that a theft of drugs taking place at Troy Rehab and Healthcare was reported to the Troy Police Department, but records show no charges were filed against Thomas in Miami County. So because complaints to the Ohio Nursing Board are not public record, there is no way of knowing if the allegation was reported to the state, but there's no record of the state taking action at that time. So again, that raises questions on whether or not timely investigation was there. So I think this is really going to, be a big case. So it is important to know that Thomas has no prior discipline from the Ohio Board of Nursing. It is unknown when or how the complaints against Thomas were made to the board. All information gathered by the Ohio Board of Nursing, including the original complaint, is confidential and cannot be shared outside of the board, a representative of the board said. So just to let you know, so it's different in different states, but so I'm bringing those things up because I want us to know, be careful out there. Watch who's signing your stuff. This is why, as hard as it is to deal with sometimes, I think electronic medical records are better the way to go, because they wouldn't be able to forge your signature if you weren't using a paper record. So, anyway, so let's go on and bring a little bit more of happenings in the nursing news. This is another case, again, all individuals are innocent until proven guilty, but I wanted to bring this up. So it says, nurse in Spencer, Iowa, accused of overdosing patients. So this is from KTIV. A Northwest Iowa woman says she's not guilty of criminal charges that she allegedly overdosed patients while working at Spencer, Iowa Hospital. Court documents show that 36-year-old Rachel Martinez of Peterson, Iowa, faces 6 charges, including 4 counts of wanton neglect of a dependent adult by a caretaker. The other 2 counts are drug-related charges. Court documents allege that while Martinez was working as a nurse at the Spencer Hospital in November of 2022, she administered hydrocodone to a patient 3 times in 5 hours. That drug was supposed to be given to the patient once every 4 hours. The same patient was administered another painkiller, tramadol, 4 times in 7 hours. That drug was supposed to be given to the patient once every 6 hours. That case is one of the 6 complaints filed against Martinez. According to court documents, she overdosed 2 other patients and administered another patient a drug they weren't prescribed so they would go to sleep after they were, quote, being annoying with the call light. And this is why I'm bringing this up. Nurses, there's no way that if this is true, that you should be doing this. That would seem to be a no-brainer. But again, I bring this up because I think people don't think it through. I say this because I worked with a nurse that was giving patients Miralax without a prescription because she wanted to make sure everybody would poop and she didn't want to deal with any constipation. So I had complaints of people having diarrhea and all this stuff because she was taking it upon herself to dose everyone with Miralax. I'm like, that person may not be able to take Miralax. It may have a health condition that would not warrant it. Don't do these things. Obviously, that nurse was fired, right? But not by me, by her administration. But that's not okay. Okay? Her trial is set to begin on May 21st in Iowa. In response to the allegations, the Spencer Hospital has released the following statement. We take patient safety and quality very seriously. While we cannot comment on any patient case due to privacy concerns, we note that any time our robust, continuous quality monitoring program identifies any variances, we take very swift action to avoid adverse outcomes. And so, thankfully, it does not seem that no one was irreparably harmed by this. So, but yeah, I don't know if this nurse didn't know what she was doing. I'm not sure why this was, but yeah, you can't do that. Okay. Okay, this is something that would probably end up making your blood boil because when I heard it, it kind of just, yeah, wow. I'll just have to remember that. So it says state Medicaid offices target dead people's homes to recoup their health care costs. It's from AP News. As Salvador Legrand fought cancer and all the pain that came with it, his daughters promised to keep him in the white pitched roof house he worked so hard to buy all those decades ago. So Sandy Legrand thought that it was a mistake when a year after her father's death, Massachusetts billed her for $177,000 for her father's Medicaid expenses and threatened to sue for his home if she didn't pay up quickly. She says this home was everything to her father, but the bill and the company threat wasn't a mistake. Rather, it was part of a routine process the federal government requires of every state to recover money from the assets of dead people who, in their final years, relied on Medicaid, the taxpayer-funded health insurance for the poorest Americans. This is like, this is really horrible. This is really horrible to hear about this. A person's home is typically exempt from qualifying for Medicaid, but it is subject to the estate recovery process for those who were over 55 and use Medicaid to pay for long-term care, such as nursing home stays or in-home health care. This month, a Democratic lawmaker proposed scuttling the cruel program altogether. Critics argue the program collects too little, roughly 1% of the more $150 billion Medicaid spends yearly on long-term care. They also say many states fail to warn people who sign up for Medicaid that big bills and claims to their property might await their families once they die. So we will see what goes on. It goes on to say LeGrand says that's how she ended up in a 2-year legal battle with Massachusetts after her father died. Several years before he died in 2016, she had turned to a local nonprofit for advice in caring for her elderly father. The group suggested she sign him up for Medicaid. She even remembers asking about the house, but was assured the state would only seek the house if it sent her father to a nursing home. He never would have signed up on anything that would put his home in jeopardy, she said. For years, her father got an annual reward notice from the state's Medicaid office. She says it wasn't until after his death, when the state has a demand for $177,000 arrived, that she saw the first bill for his care, which included a brief stint in the hospital for pain from cancer, medications, and hospice. That's what ripped my guts out. It was dishonest. The state settled with LeGrand in 2019 and released its claim on the house. So I would say if you're signing up, ask the questions, read the fine print. This is important to know. Yeah. So hopefully this will be taken into consideration because that's really sad. It says New York and Ohio top the country for such collections, recovering more than 100 million combined in a single year. An investigation into the Kansas program released Tuesday by the Health and Human Services Inspector General found the program was cost effective, yielding 37 million while only spending 5 million to recover the money, but the state didn't always collect the money from estates that were eligible. Last month, the foundation for one of the industry's biggest health insurance giants called on Massachusetts to overhaul its process, which includes collecting reimbursement from most Medicaid costs beyond the federal government's minimum requirement to recover long-term care expenses. So, yeah. So in Tennessee, which recovered more than 38.2 million for more than 8,100 states last year, Imani Mafami found herself in a similar predicament after her mother's death in 2021. As her mother's early onset dementia worsened, Mafami continued to care for her, but in 2015, she was diagnosed with breast cancer and needed a double mastectomy. She started looking at other options. She hosted a meeting in her mother's home with local Medicaid office. The representative told her to drain her mother's bank accounts. Money Mafami poured into assisted living facility payments for her mom so her mother would qualify for the program. She recalls being somewhat offended during the meeting after the representative asked her 3 times, "This is your mother's home?" The representative, Mafami said, made no mention that she could be forced to sell the house to settle her mother's bill with Medicaid once she died. Wow. So the Tennessee Medicaid office says she owes $225,000, and the state is seeking a court order that would require Mafami to sell the house to pay up. So I'm just letting you know, hey, if you've got loved ones, you might want to consider thinking of a different way and seeing if there's any way to talk to an attorney to save the assets from the house and having to pay back if you're going to go on the Medicaid. But yeah, that was a wild moment for me. Let's take another break before we get into our next story, which will be a happier story. So there we go. My mission is for you to own your seat at the table of nurse entrepreneurship, gaining confidence, skills, and freedom to live your life on your own terms. I specialize in working with nurses and other health professionals who want to reduce burnout, pessimism, and compassion fatigue. So you can become a successful entrepreneur to reclaim the love you have for your profession and to create a fulfilling and prosperous life. Join the Nurse Shark Academy at thenurseSharkAcademy.biz and come feel the sun, providing a clear path for business success. Okay, taking the next break, and let's hop into these other stories real quick. I did want to bring up this one story before we go to something a little bit more exciting. Okay, let's get into the exciting stuff because we're running short of time. All right, so um, this is coming from WRBI Radio in Ripley County, Indiana. It says the Ripley County Community Foundation is honored to announce the establishment of the Riley Duerstock Nursing Scholarship, which is available to students in 2024. Darren and Jill Duerstock established this scholarship in memory of their daughter, Riley, in hopes of bringing joy and hope out of tragedy. Riley passed away in a car accident on September 11, 2023, at the age of 21. Riley was a nurturer by nature who was drawn to the medical field from an early age. In her short life, she touched the lives of many with her selfless ways. At the age of 16, Riley was a medical intern in Ghana, Africa, during which she cared for people suffering from leprosy and poor mothers and their ill children. Later, she donated her eggs to women unable to conceive, and at the time of her death, she was in her third year of nursing school at the University of Indianapolis with hopes of becoming a flight nurse. And so that is my one of my alma maters. So yeah, very sad to hear. It says in her final hours, she gave the ultimate gift of life to three recipients of her organs. So they are establishing the Riley Duerstock Nursing Scholarship, which is a $1,000 award, which will support a current nursing student who is pursuing a bachelor's degree as an RN, is a resident of Ripley or Franklin County, and is a graduate of Batesville High School. The application due date is June the 1st, 2024, and can be accessed through the Ripley County Community Foundation website at rccfonline.org /scholarships. And so please, those of you that are becoming nurses and you qualify for that, if you want more information about that, I'll be happy to put that in the show notes if you ask. But yeah, go to that website and for the Riley Duerstock Nursing Scholarship. And so I want to say Riley is one of our nurses, potential nurses, making a difference. All right, let's go on to the next story. This was interesting, and I found this. This is from WAJR, and I found this very interesting. This is from West Virginia, and it says WVU announces nursing diploma program. Following a years-long struggle to maintain staffing levels, WVU Medicine has gone back to a familiar concept to give more people at any point in their work lives the opportunity to earn a nursing degree. The West Virginia RN Board has approved their plans for a 21-month diploma program through the WVU Medicine Center for Nursing Education. The center will prepare students to take the same licensure tests taken by 2- and 4-year nursing students. On Metro News Talkline, President and CEO of WVU Medicine, Albert Wright, said they wanted a program that would incentivize people to become nurses and address the ongoing critical shortage. They said, we want to remove all the barriers for folks to do that, cover all the tuition and all the books, so we really try to increase the number of people who maybe never thought about going into healthcare or maybe never thought about getting a healthcare related degree. So they said the main teaching might happen here in Morgantown, but maybe you have a cohort of students and an instructor at our Princeton Hospital or Kaiser Hospital, so we really start to train more nurses closer to where they live. Wright explained that the program is more hands-on with less academic exposure, but more experiential learning. It will be a lot heavier on clinical practice and a little less on some of the non-clinical academic coursework, so that this is a very vocational type of nursing degree. The program will include simulations and resources like a skull lab. I think that means to say a skill lab. With the resources to WVU Medicine, Wright says he believes that they're on the path of providing a pipeline of trained nurses. So I think that's kind of great. We'll see what happens with this. And maybe we'll see more diploma programs come back. That might be something to see. All right, so that ends our... Oh, wait, we have one more. I almost forgot. I wanted to share this. because we often have nurses who are making a difference in academia and those that are working for hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. But these are school nurses, and I wanted to share this. This came out of their local news, and it says two nurses recognized by the Massachusetts Nursing Association. So the school nurse office is no longer just a place to go when you have a stomach ache after lunch or skin your knee at recess. Through the North Middlesex Regional School District, the offices are hubs of activity where the registered nurses dispense medication, treat students and staff for injuries, help families with complex issues like homelessness and health insurance, prepare for emergencies, and educate the community. One might think school nursing is all about band aids and ice packs, said Rebecca Boutwell, the district resource nurse. Some may think that the school nurse is a place a student goes to get out of class. Many have no knowledge as to what school nursing is all about and what we do every day. School nursing is a complex, specialized area of nursing where we are faced with challenges every day. School nurses embrace those challenges before us to assist the student or staff to achieve their full potential. So the district is fortunate to have a team of dedicated nurses, including two who were recently honored for their excellence by the Massachusetts School Nurse Association on March of 16. Boutwell received the Annie McFay Scholarship Award, named after the state's first school nurse. Only two of these awards are given each year to school nurses who demonstrate a commitment to school nursing and are working to advance their practice and their education through a master's or postgraduate degree program. Boutwell is a board certified registered nurse with almost 30 years of experience. She's been a school nurse for 23 years. So I want to say congratulations to her. And then Kayla Hahn, who works at Spalding Memorial School in Townsend, was one of just 10 school nurses in the state who received the Rising Star Award. So this award is given to new school nurses with fewer than 5 years experience. Hahn graduated with a bachelor's in health education and then returned to school for a bachelor's in nursing. She has been a nurse for about 7 years. So I want to say congratulations to those school nurses for getting your award from the Massachusetts School Nurse Association. Congratulations. Two of our nurses making a difference. All right, so that's going to be it for our show today. Thanks for tuning in. We went over by our time by a little bit, but that's okay, because I wanted to make sure that we talked about what's happening in healthcare. And so, again, don't forget to like and subscribe, share our content, bring more people onto the channel, because we want to give you more information on healthcare news. Stick around and listen to the entire broadcast, because there's some great things that you can learn. And as always, if you want more information about what we do at the Nurse Shark Academy, join us at the nursesharkacademy.biz. Bye-bye for now.